Good morning, good afternoon, welcome, hugs and kisses. My name is Jewel Woods, and I'm the Executive Director of the Renaissance Male Project. And I am honored that you have chosen to take some time out of your day to join us for this very, very important conversation. What I'd like to do is take a moment to explain the format for our May Brown Bag discussion, Men and Feminism, New Alliances, New Directions. And that format is essentially four parts. First, there will be a brief introduction to our organization. Second, there will be a brief introduction to our presenter. Third, the actual presentation, which should last about 25 minutes. And fourth, a question and answer period, which should last for about 20 minutes. The Renaissance Male Project is a multicultural, multi-issue, and progressive men's organization located here in the Midwest. As a multicultural organization, we seek to be diverse along a number of dimensions, including age, race and ethnicity, sexualities, class, and region. As a multi-issue organization, we focus on 5 areas referred to as the 5 pillars of our organization. They include economic and racial justice, ending violence against women, education equity, health parity, and men's issues. As a progressive men's organization, we are committed to issues in social justice and social welfare, but with a particular emphasis on the issues and how they impact men and boys. Our core beliefs center around holding men and boys accountable and holding society accountable to men and boys. The values and principles of our organization orientate all the activities, initiatives, and events that we sponsor, and we certainly invite you to become aware of our organization by visiting our website and joining our mailing list. A quick sort of introductory sort of commentary to sort of connect some of the things that we do. Our last Brown Bag conversation, actually, which was in March, was on the topic of sports and society, actually subtitled March Madness, Masculinities and Sexualities in a Sports Society. During the course of that conversation, one of the points that a person made was that they were watching USC, University of Southern California's football program, and at some point the reporter asked the entire team what their thoughts were about Joe Biden. Of course, that person was struck by, and perhaps even the reporter, when no one on USC's football team, appeared to know who Joe Biden was. And of course, this was during the election period. So 2 quick points. One, of course, that raises the whole question and concern of what does it mean to be a student athlete if, in fact, college students are not aware of that. But more importantly, for males, what might be lost by not knowing not only who Joe Biden is, which is, then a person running for the vice president's office, but to know Joe Biden's relationship to women's issues, his sponsoring the Violence Against Women Act, so on and so forth. And today, given this historic nomination of a new justice that President Obama has brought national attention to, becomes another opportunity for us to figure out what men's relationship is to women's issues and supporting and affirming women's leadership. So with that said, we are very excited about today's conversation, and at this time I would like to introduce our speaker. Rebecca Walker is an award-winning author, editor, speaker, and cultural commentator. In 1992, Rebecca co-founded the Third Wave Foundation, a nonprofit that works through grant-making, leadership development, philanthropy, advocacy to support young women of all backgrounds. She was chosen by Time Magazine as one of the 50 most influential American leaders for her generation of nonpartisan approach to identity politics and belief that lasting change begins within. She has a number of important books that are very important for us to be aware of, to be real, telling the truth, and changing the face of feminism. Black, White, and Jewish, an autobiography of shifting self. What Makes a Man, 22 Writers Imagine the Future. And her latest memoir, Baby Love, Choosing Motherhood After a Lifetime of Ambivalence. There are a number of different, endless, I should say, reasons why one would be fascinated and consider the importance of Rebecca Walker and her work and her life to be significant. It is extremely important for organizations such as ours that claims to be a pro-feminist, progressive men's organization to be extremely aware and to honor her work. So at this time, I'd like to take a moment of personal reflection. Thank her for all the work it has taken to get us to this point. But also, it's my pleasure to introduce Rebecca Walker.
Thank you so much, Joel. That was such a lovely introduction. I want to say that I'm really proud to be here with you. I'm inspired by the work that you and the Renaissance Male Project is doing. I think these kinds of discussions are crucial for the future of the species, really. the ways in which men and women relate are going to shape the consciousness of humanity, from here on. So these are extremely important discussions to have. We don't have enough of them, and I'm really happy that you're here and that all of you listeners out there are here and that we are utilizing this very interesting form of technology. I've not done this kind of interface before, so it's exciting and new and fresh. So I want to start, keeping my eye on the clock so that we have plenty of time for questions, and just talk a little bit about my work with masculinity and men and boys, and my feelings about the position of men and the men's movement, if you will, within feminism, and where it has been and where it is at present and where I think it needs to go. And I'd like to talk about it within a personal and also a larger political framework. So when I founded Third Wave Foundation, at that point in the early 90s, it was called the Third Wave Direct Action Corporation. It was clear to me that men felt very alienated and isolated from the women's movement, and so did many of my generational peers. And so I founded this organization primarily to challenge the idea of what a feminist organization was, that to sort of broaden the community to include people who did not necessarily feel an affinity. And men and boys were definitely a part of that group. At that point, men were asking a lot of questions like, well, can men be feminists, and how do we participate? And the resounding response from the quote-unquote feminist community was no. You don't know what it feels like to be a woman. There's no reason for you to try to participate in this. You need to go over there and, try to figure it out for yourselves. And my vision was that that was really antithetical to the ultimate goal of trying to heal some of the relationships between men and women, and trying to restructure and revision patriarchy, and that if we created distance between ourselves and alienated men, that the actual primary actors and players in the realm of patriarchy would be less invested in the transformation of it. And so Third Wave was born with this inclusive ideology that was built into our bylaws, and was really a very important pillar of what we were about. And so in our development, we ended up sponsoring various projects that were about men taking responsibility and being accountable for things like domestic violence, sexual abuse, their identity as men, and how they related to women in terms of feeling that they were in positions of power based on their gender or / anatomy. And so that was successful to a point. I started to feel very hampered and stymied within the traditional feminist community a few years later, because while there was a fair amount of openness among the leadership in what we would call feminist leadership, there was not a real commitment to embracing men and really stoking the discourse around masculinity. And that was evinced as I traveled around at colleges talking in women's studies programs and suggesting that they shift into gender studies programs, which allowed more participation from men from a sort of a primary or a primal position for men, rather than as acting within these departments as kind of voyeuristic students of the women's movement, but actually coming to understand that not just femininity and womanhood was a social construct, but also masculinity and manhood. There's a lot of resistance to that around the country, and there still is quite a bit, but I started to become much more aware of the depth of the resistance, and a sense that women had fought for so long, rightly so, to attain a level of institutional power, and that they were really unwilling to let go of that. And there was a sense that men were already so empowered, and if we share that power, then what will we have?